Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to our day one NFL draft recap here for the Falcons on the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Knight at Falcoholic. Kevin coming to you after midnight here on now Friday, I guess, as the Falcons were unexpectedly busy here in the first round of the 2025 NFL draft. Obviously picked at 15, and it did seem like they were trying to move out of that pick given how long they took to make that selection. They get Georgia linebacker Jalon Walker, which to many will probably be considered the steal of the draft, considering where some had him as high as like a top 5 player. A lot of people know me as apparently the resident Jalon Walker hater. I still think that Jalon Walker is a good player, but like some people had him as an extremely good player. So you have to be ecstatic. It's also the first Georgia player the Falcons have taken in the first round in like 40 years or something. So there's also that. But not only do they do that, the Falcons also pull off a very aggressive trade back into the first round with the Los Angeles Rams, giving up a 2026 first round pick to get pick 26 from the Rams to go get edge rusher James Pearce Jr., who was also someone who was heavily linked with the team throughout this process. So, yeah, it's exciting, spicy, bold to say the very least. We're going to get into these prospects a little bit, give you some instant reactions. If you want our immediate reactions, you can go back and watch the day one stream. That's all available there on YouTube. If you want to go get into it and see our instant reactions to that. But tonight we're going to break down more of what these prospects bring, the trade compensation in the case of James Pearce, and how these guys can fit into the Falcons' plans in 2025 and beyond. Exciting stuff here. I'm excited to bring you this coverage. A fun and unexpected first round, to say the very least. Let's dive in real quick, though. Before I forget, I want to bring you guys a word from our sponsor, BetOnline, of course. And guys, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season's in full swing. We're into the home stretch of the NBA and NHL playoffs. BetOnline's got more ways than ever to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting options while the games are being played. With the largest selection of odds on everything, we talked about MLB, NHL, UFC. They've got props. They've got all kinds of stuff. I don't know if they're going to do any day two props for the draft, but you could jump on those spicy picks. BetOnline remains the number one source for all your sports wagering information. And in between games, you can head on over to BetOnline's online casino. They've got all the top Vegas-style games, including poker, live, slots, other casino games. You can check that out all on betonline.ag. And when you sign up, make sure to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to get access to the latest promotions on BetOnline. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right. I know everyone's going to want to get to the details, so we're not going to waste a lot of time here. Let's dive in first to Jalon Walker. This is a guy that I somewhat notoriously, I guess, maybe I've been lower on as like someone I've had more in the 20s of my big board as opposed to in the top 10. I thought that was kind of rich. I think 15 is fine for Jalon Walker. I think that's good, objectively good value based on consensus and stuff like that. With me, I have some concerns about like what is his projection, where does he play, so on and so forth. Are you going to play him as a full-time edge at that size? The arm length is a problematic thing for being a full-time edge rusher, but his size is fine for a linebacker, right? So it seems like the team believes that he is a versatile chess piece type of player that can move around, that can rush the passer and be a DPR in the form of a Hassan Reddick, but also provide you with some off-ball stuff that even Reddick can't really do. He's got, I think the size is an issue. He's also only 21. It's not out of the question that he could continue to get bigger. I think weight-wise, he's fine for what he is. Athletically, he looks great, right? He's a smooth mover. He's explosive. He didn't test, which is a little bit interesting and maybe mildly concerning, but Falcons apparently weren't scared off. Apparently he had a great workout with them. at the workout that apparently Michael Walker didn't do well at, and Jalon Walker did. It saw Michael Walker end up going first, interestingly enough. But I like what Jalon Walker can bring. I think that he's potentially a very good off-ball linebacker. Like, I think that's kind of underrated, but he's not a good off-ball linebacker yet. It's something that's new to him, and honestly, like, picking up how to play inside like linebacker is very difficult. I mean, developing those instincts, figuring out all those things, it's tough. It's not easy or simple. I mean, we've seen how long it's taken Troy Anderson to get to a starting caliber level. Now, Troy Anderson had to play like 4 different positions that were different sides of the ball before he became a linebacker, so that's a little bit different. But, I think for Walker, it's all about, can he take that next step? Can he find a home? Can he become an impact player in a single area? Or is he someone that's going to just have a little bit of an impact in multiple areas? Because I think to justify this type of a pick, he really has to be an impact player on the level of like Hassan Reddick, who infamously didn't really hit for several years. Took him some time. He's done a lot of stuff. I think he has experience playing linebacker, playing edge, playing off ball, like doing all those little things. He's dropped in coverage some. I think for the most part, he's been like a stand-up outside linebacker, which, if this is the 4-3 under that Ulbrich has run, historically, he's probably like, that sort of Vic Beasley-esque guy, right? Not comping him to Vic Beasley in any other way, but one of the edges is typically a stand-up type of rusher, lighter, more going to be like a 7-tech or a 9-tech type of guy. And the other guy is going to be hand in the dirt 4-3 defensive end. And maybe that's, Pearce, right? So we'll see. But I like Jalon Walker's potential. I think he's a very interesting player for the Falcons. I think he could be a home run, and that's part of, why you select him here. He just wasn't someone that I think the Falcons were expecting to have available to them at this time in the draft. I do couch it in that, like, I probably would have preferred Jahad Campbell, but apparently there were medical flags with Campbell. So that's obviously part of it. Everything I've heard about Jalon Walker in terms of how he interviews, how he approaches the game, it's all very encouraging. It's all good. It's all positive. In fact, it's glowing, right? I mean, coach's son, loves the game, will do anything that the team needs, all that stuff. Like, he checks all those boxes. We know that's really important to the Falcons. And he's young, right? He just turned 21. This guy's got a long career ahead of him. And he could really be something special, and that's exciting. So I'm willing to. I wouldn't, I know, like, if I'm trying to be a nitpicker, I'd be like, oh, maybe he's I'm not going to call him a reach or anything like that. In fact, I think he's objectively good value at pick 15. That's great to have. It's not something that the Falcons have always done. So, I like the pick. I don't love it. Like, I know some of you will be like over the moon, and I'm happy for you guys for sure. There were way more problematic picks that could be made. Shout out to those Matthew Golden rumors popping up at the last second. Doesn't have to have that particular nightmare. But, yeah, I like the Jalon Walker pick. I think he's an intriguing chess piece. I think he is someone that really could be an impact, versatile defender that can do several different things for your defense when it's all said and done. I just worry, like, how much of that are you getting immediately, and how much are you putting on his plate early? Like, I think that you may need to temper your expectations for him playing multiple spots as a rookie. I think the best thing for him might just be to have him play one spot to start, right? Whether that's off ball or whether that's as like a third round designated pass rusher, stand up outside linebacker type. I think they need to kind of limit his role, get him comfortable, and then expand it out. Don't throw everything at him from day one and expect it to go well. It's a lot to ask of any player, even a player as smart, as Jalon Walker is. So I hope the Falcons will do that. And break him in, kind of slowly to the defense. And this coaching staff is really excited to get their hands on him and be able to incorporate him in lots of interesting ways. I'm excited to see how they do it. but they got to find a way, to do it in a way that's going to maximize what he can give you and not overload him mentally. I think that was a big problem with last year's defense. Guys were just like, what? We don't get this. Like, what are we doing? I do think one of the things that this, Ulbrich Quinn style defense is known for is it's very simple. And guys can kind of just go run and hit, right? They don't have to overly process. And that could be great in this scenario for a guy like Jalon Walker. So I'm excited to see what he could bring. I think he's a really exciting player, obviously, and could be someone who is a big hit for Atlanta. In a perfect scenario, obviously he's giving you plus snaps at multiple positions and flying around the field and doing a little bit of everything. I think we'll see if he can reach that ceiling. But there were apparently many teams that had him high on their board, not high enough, I guess, to take him ahead, like before 15. But sometimes, again, if teams viewed him as an off-ball linebacker, a lot of teams are reluctant to take that in the top 10, even if they really like a guy. So we'll see. But I do like Jalon Walker. So they start off kind of strong. They start off on the right foot with a player that I think is pretty much universally liked, at the very least, by fans. And then they move on. And on the show, we're just kind of relaxing. We had a couple great guests on, Dave Chode and Bryce Lewis, my fellow Believe host, just kind of relaxing, chatting it up. And then we see, of course, come across the wire, the Falcons are trading up to 26. I mean, not something I had on my bingo card. And the reason they're able to do it is, of course, because they trade a future first rounder. Now, we're going to get to that. But we'll start off with just talking about the player himself, James Pearce Jr., who was rumored to potentially be their original target at 15. That had picked up a ton of steam lately. Funny enough, James Pearce Jr., the first player I mocked to Atlanta back in January, it just felt like he would be a fit. He's a great pass rusher. Had one of the highest pass rush win rates in all of college football, 23%. 8 sacks, 43 hurries this year. He got a lot better against the run. I think in 2023, he looked just not physical enough. I think this year he improved his physicality. And I do think that he's a passable run defender now. He's someone that you can leave on the field. He's always going to be a better weak side run defender, right? He's always going to be a better guy that's going to be set up more to be a pursuit player, to be a chaser, to be a gap shooter, not a point of attack type of guy. But I think he converts speed to power well. That's one of his go-to moves that will probably surprise people if they haven't really watched him and just kind of vibed out on James Pearce. Yes, he is incredibly quick. He has a lethal first step. It's his best trait, and it's outstanding. I mean, it's elite. He will just blow by people sometimes, just absolutely dust people. He has good hands. He's powerful despite his relatively slim stature, right? He's got a bunch of moves. I think he's capable of, playing in a 3-point stance. I think he plays standing up too. He's had some, experience dropping in coverage. I think he could be better in some areas and could continue to refine his pass rushing, but he's got moves in his tool bag. He's got a track record of success as a pass rusher. And, I think the biggest thing with him was obviously that teams questioned his off field. From what I gathered about Pearce, it was never problematic off field stuff. Like he's a locker room issue or there's allegations or anything like that. No, Pearce is just a weird dude. From what I can understand, Pearce is just a weird guy. He has a kind of an odd personality. He's kind of nonchalant. It rubs some coaches the wrong way and makes them think that he maybe doesn't care or whatever. That's where that sort of off-field is coming from. He maintains that he does care a lot about football and is very into it. And I think watching the tape, he looks like a guy who cares. Guys that don't care don't work on improving their run defense when they're a projected, top 15 pick based on their pass rushing, right? The fact that he, I think, really did work to get stronger and refine that run stuffing, that to me does scream that this is a guy that knows that that's his path to playing and having success in the NFL is he has to be able to at least function as an early down player, or he's not going to see enough snaps to be a big impact guy. Now, as a rookie, yeah, first year, maybe you're wanting him to be more of a DPR type of player as a part of a rotation. I think he's a fine run defender, especially if you're making him more of your weak side or your stand-up, edge rusher. You don't really want him playing like 5-tech or like, having to go head up against a tackle, that sort of thing. But if you're going to let him shoot gaps, let him try to get in the backfield and cause havoc, that sort of thing, he can be an effective run defender. He's a good finisher. He makes tackles. It's just, he had a great run stop rate. I mean, statistically, good run defense grade, good run stop rate, to go along with, of course, his elite, pass rush winning. He checks the boxes. He just needs to do better overall, right? But I really like James Pearce. I would have been happy with him at 15. I think he's a natural fit for this style of defense. I think they'll probably have him, standing up most of the time, but he's a guy that, can potentially put his hand in the dirt too if they want to go that route. And he gives the Falcons, I think, a legit third down presence, like even more so than what they've had with like Arnold Ebiketie, who I think is also a good third down pass rusher. Like Pearce is another level. Like Ebiketie is explosive and he's got some bend to him and all that. Pearce isn't the best bender, but Pearce, it's a trump card. Like when you're going after these guys in the first round, you want to see a trait that is going to help them stand out and get easy wins. That's what his explosive first step is. He will just dust people. And that can be the difference in a game, right? These guys, a lot of times, especially these rookies, they're not going to get tons of sacks. They're not going to all this stuff. Like he might just get sacks from just blowing by somebody, because that's kind of who he is. He's a good finisher. He's got great instincts for getting to the quarterback. I think he's got 21 sacks over the last 2 seasons. I mean, great stuff. A ton of pressures this last year. Batted passes. He's an exciting player. A player I like quite a bit. I'm excited to get him in Atlanta. I think I like this pick, more than the Jalon Walker pick. But now we have to kind of get into the other side of the coin, which is what did the Falcons have to give up to pull off getting 2 starting edge rushers, like 2 elite, top 15 sort of style edge rushers. Like they had to give up a 2026 first round pick to move back into the first round. And that is going to be talked about a lot. The Falcons are going to be in the headlines again, folks. Get ready. So the Falcons, the details of the trade, for those that aren't aware, the Falcons moved up from 46 to 26. That's 20 spots, half of them being first round spots. It's an expensive trade. That's a lot. At that point in the draft, it's still expensive. The Falcons give up just 46 this year, along with 242. So really, Terry Fontenot doing the Lord's work and getting us out early on day 3. So first of all, chef's kiss on that. Great job, Terry. But that's all they gave up this year, and that's important to note, right? They didn't give up any additional picks this year, which is kind of how this whole thing could work out. Not only do they not give up, they give up that 7th, and they turn that 7th into a 3rd rounder. Now, it's a late 3rd. It's pick 101, technically not a top 100 pick. But the Falcons then go from having, no day 2 picks because they traded 46 to having a 3rd rounder in 101. That's nice. That's nice. They didn't have a 3rd rounder before. So they actually get a decent pick back in this transaction. The kicker with this trade, of course, will be that 2026 first. The Rams are betting that the Falcons will be bad. Probably a decent bet, right? I don't think they'll be bad. The Rams are betting that the Falcons will finish in the top 15 picks. The Falcons are betting that they won't. And if the Falcons finish in the 20s, especially the late 20s, right, which is probably unlikely, but if they finish in the 20s at all, the Falcons are probably getting plus value on this because you have to factor in that a future pick is worth less. So if they do finish, if they make the playoffs, notwithstanding if these players even work out, or if the Falcons make the playoffs and that pick is late, they get plus value on this trade. So, I don't think it's as cut and dry as people are saying, like, oh, that was really expensive. The Falcons are giving up, all this for this. Like, yes, it's expensive no matter what. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, you're giving up a future first. But the value on the trade isn't as bad. It's probably closer to even if it's a late first. So the Rams, of course, are betting that it'll be an early first. The Falcons are betting that it'll be a late first. We'll find out who's right, in 6 months, right? But getting that 3rd back is critical. And I think that's really wise. The Falcons were looking for a third. They didn't have. So they basically trade their second for a third, in that way. So the fact that they get that pick back is something that people shouldn't ignore. That's a big deal. Now, obviously, they have to do something good with that pick. But they will have pick 101 on Friday, and they will have pick 118 in the 4th round on Saturday. And then, of course, they'll have pick 218, I believe, still in the 7th round. So they've got 3 more picks, 2 of which are close to the top 100, picks that could still be potentially useful players, rotational, developmental guys, interesting picks, right? These guys, nothing to shake a stick at, right? Exciting picks potentially. Before anyone asks, I don't think they're going to get crazy and do any more trades or trade ups or anything like that. They could trade down still, but that's what I said, previously. Oh, they can't trade up. That's too expensive. I guess that doesn't exist for this team, right? I think it's really bold, and I like it. I mean, I like the player, so I like the trade. If I didn't like the player, I wouldn't like the trade. That's kind of how this goes, right? But, I really like James Pearce, even though he's kind of a weird prospect and kind of scares me. I'm in. I've decided that I'm in on James Pearce. I'm down to take the risk. And again, 2 super young guys, right? James Pearce is just 21 and a half, something like that. Jalon Walker just turned 21. These are young defensive pillars that could be cornerstones of your team for the next 4 years, right? And the fact that they're both, first-round picks means that you do have 2 fifth-round options here as well. If they're both worth it, you that gives you that extra year of control. So that's nice too. But ultimately, the biggest deal is the Falcons now are betting hard that they're going to make the playoffs in 2026 and get that pick down to, now we're no longer we're not considering draft position at all. We need to win as many games as we can, maximize, and we may see a different sort of attitude coming out of this draft as well, in terms of they might start spending, they may start extending and restructuring and maximizing their cap to that effect, right? Now we're going to push our chips in a little bit more. We went more aggressive in the draft than we were thinking we might, because things fell away that we wanted. I think it's hard to be mad at this, right? You can say it's maybe not good value, it's not good team management and all this long term, and you could be right? It's absolutely the case that it may not be good team management. It may be an overpay. It may be, it's going to crush our mock drafts next year, and that's something that I'm going to have to come to terms with. It's going to hurt me deeply. But this team needed pass rush help desperately. We've been clamoring for it for years, and they finally address it with 2 major picks, 2 major additions. And I think that, it makes a lot of sense. I think it fits what they want to do. I think it fits their timeline. And look, a lot of people probably assume that these 2 guys are being drafted to bring us an instant impact this year. And they are to some extent. But I think it's more about, 2026 is, I think, the year they have circled as, we want to actually compete. We don't want to just, maybe sneak into the playoffs, maybe win a wild card game. 2026 is we want to be a contender in 2026. And to get there, you have to take steps in 2025, right, to build up to that level. And getting James Pearce and Jalon Walker in the building and a year under their belt going into 2026 could be a really good thing, because we could now, instead of needing to, go out and get a bunch more reinforcements in next year's draft and then having a bunch more rookies that we're going to have to get up to speed, it may be that these guys are now ready to play. We by the end of the season, maybe we feel really comfortable about what we're getting from Walker and Pearce, and that they're ready to contribute for 2026. And the Falcons are a step ahead of where we thought they would be. There's obviously more holes that have to be filled. They're not done. But like I said, this could be a signal that they're going to get more aggressive in free agency now that the draft is passed, or maybe they're going to hold on to that money until, they after June 1st and they move on from Kirk, and then maybe they get a little more breathing room. We'll see. But either way, it's exciting. I really like James Pearce Jr. I think Jalon Walker is a worthy pick at 15. I'm excited to see how they utilize Jalon Walker. I think that's kind of the biggest question mark. I think James Pearce is pretty straightforward, right? I mean, pass rush specialist, and they needed it desperately. So, yeah, I like it. I think it's bold. I think it's very exciting. And that was one of my biggest beefs with this team. And you can call it fair or not. That this team was just boring, right? I mean, like, Michael Penix has some pop, right? He's exciting, but it's like they didn't really do much in free agency yet. It can change. They had limited draft resources, limited salary cap space. The team just felt kind of boring, like they were stuck in the mud, just kind of mediocre. That's not the case anymore. I think this first round spices the team up quite a bit. You get a Georgia player in here, so that'll rile up some fans for good or ill, right? They finally drafted a Georgia player in the first round. It's inevitable. It seems like they've avoided it for like 50 years. It's exciting. I like this direction. I think it's bold. Obviously, if you screw up, then you're in big trouble next year. But just don't miss, and you're fine. So, I think bold action was required to get this team where we needed them to be, and bold action was taken. Will it work? Can't answer that for you. I do like the direction. I think it's interesting. I think it's bold, and I'm in. I like the strategy. I like the player in James Pearce. I like Jalon Walker. I think if you'd flip these two for me, I'd be a little bit slightly happier, but I don't really care. We don't need to play that game. I'm happy with the 2 picks. I think it addresses significant needs. Now we just have to see the plan in action and see how the Falcons finish out the draft and what else they do over the course of free agency. But I feel a lot better. And we mentioned it, right, over the last few weeks. Like, the team didn't do enough in free agency, but we could feel a lot better after the draft. And so far, after day one, I do feel a lot better. Now, will we still feel this way after the season and they have no first-round pick coming in to help them? That's a question for after the season. But the hope, obviously, is that this team will take these 2 first-round picks, take the rest of these picks from this draft, maybe do a couple more things in free agency, and end 2026 on a playoff run, maybe a short one, wild card win, maybe. Maybe that's our ceiling. But I think if that happens, we'll be feeling good. We're like, okay, we made the playoffs. It's another year, whatever. It was the pick we gave up. Isn't that going to cost us that much? It's a late first. We're cooking. What we got from James Pearce and Jalon Walker was well worth it. I hope that's where we are, less than a year from now. But we'll have to see. It's going to be a while before we know the outcome of this trade, know if it's worth it or not for this team or the Rams. But I'm excited to see how it plays out, and I feel a lot better about the direction of this defense in particular at this point. So thanks so much, guys, for joining us here on our draft recap show here on the here on Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. If you want more draft coverage, we'll be back live once again on Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern to give you the live coverage of the entire day 2, which is the second and third rounds. And then, of course, we'll be back on day 3 at noon, taking you through all of day 3 as well, because we are, crazy. So we will be bringing you that. Excited to see you. Join us on YouTube for that. I'll be giving away $50 NFL shop cards on both of those shows as well, courtesy of George Costanza's generous donation. So join us for that. Join us for fun, for takes, all that good stuff. We will see you guys there. But thank you again for joining us here on the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. I'm Kevin Knight. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Follow the show on Twitter at Falcoholic Live. If you want to support the show, you can do so on Patreon. You can do so in the YouTube channel memberships. Both of those are great. Appreciate everyone who's supporting the show on a monthly basis there. Thank you guys so much. And yeah, exciting draft. Very spicy, much spicier than I expected. And I wonder if day 2 will be more of the same. We'll see. But thanks so much, guys. We'll see you next time. Have a great night.